listening to Strides and Vibes. Whether you're on a long run, a lunch break, or stretching out with your foam roller, welcome to the podcast all about moving better, living healthier, and vibing higher. I'm your host, Mario Buchs, elite running coach, ultra endurance athlete, and founder of Healthetica Coaching, coming to you from the trails, tracks, and streets of Gadigal country in Sydney, Australia. Each episode, I'll bring in guests from all walks, from coaches, athletes to world-class performers, as well as doctors and professionals in their fields, to unpack their stories and explore the mindset shifts, science, and practical strategies that help us go the distance in running and in life. So, lace up, tune in, and let's move towards a better you, one stride at a time. Hello. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Strides and Vibes podcast. And yeah, on my left or on my right, however you're going to see it in the end, is a good friend of mine that we know each other for a few years now. We've been running together, and that's the usual connection here on this podcast, a little bit of running. But my guest is not here because he runs a lot. I think we will go and delve in and find out a lot more about Az Roberts. Originally from New Zealand, but you'll hear that after the first three words, which I think he's very proud of. And we love it. We love a different dialect. People who listen to the last podcast could hear a Finnish fella who lives in Tahiti. So Az, what makes you you? And welcome, of course.
Yeah, cheers, Mario. Thank you. What makes me me? That's a big question, right? That's actually a huge question. I don't know. I'd say I'm pretty creative. What I've been, I guess, a way of answering this is sort of thinking about this journey I've been on in the last sort of few years, and really sort of coming to terms with this identity of, Aaron as the runner, the athlete, the endurance person who likes to flog himself on a regular basis, and then there's as the creative, and really that's been a big journey for me over my whole life, is sort of having these two sort of separate identities and sort of wondering where I fit between the two of them. For since I was a little boy, I can just remember running around outside and doing creative shit inside, and that's been pretty much me.
So what do you do now? I know you're very fond of the human interaction. That's also how I think we connect. We like humans. We like to deal with humans. This is what brought me into coaching. So what makes you tick on that front? What got you into this human interaction, human connection?
Yeah, so that's so going back to the sort of early days in New Zealand in the 90s, and I grew up in the time when like Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley and the NBA was really huge. And one of the things that stood out for me at the time was this advertising. It was on TV for Nike. There was this ad, and it was called Instant Karma, and it's set to this song by John Lennon called Instant Karma. And I think it was back in 92, 93 or something like that. Anyway, but there was just something about this ad, and it was the first time I ever felt like I was watching something that just made me want to go and run through walls. I didn't necessarily want to go and buy a pair of Nikes, but it just made me want to run through walls. And then it was kind of from that moment there that I realized that I wanted to make people feel that. Like, I wanted to be the person who could create that thing and make people feel something so they could then go and move. Time, because I was pretty young, I didn't know exactly what it was, but I just knew that I wanted to be that guy that made people feel something or could connect with them. So however that was, through image or through video or through audio, through my words or through something else, I wanted to be able to do that. And that sort of tied into my design career starting, where I was just started off in advertising because I wanted to be the guy that would create the ads to make people feel something like that. But then I realized after about 4 years in advertising that that there's this really tiny percent of advertising that people actually give a shit about. And it's only like the top 0.000% that are the Nike ads and stuff, and that people actually pay attention to and can shift cultures and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, well, that's advertising out the window. And then that sort of led to product design, which I'm sort of focused in now, which is designing for these things and screens and, the internet and stuff. And what I love about that is the utility. So you're designing something that people are using every single day. And to do that really well, you have to be thinking about who is the person on the other side of the experience that you're designing for. So I did that for quite a while. And in the last sort of 10 years, I've become really, really fascinated with who the other person is on the other side of the screen, more so than the actual thing we're designing. So this is the interface, but it's Mario on the other side of the screen. And I'm way more interested in Mario's story than I am in what color the button should be or what size the logo should be or how many clicks this is. Like, that's all part of it. But as I'm sort of peeling back the layers, I'm finding I'm more and more interested on the human on the other side of the thing, the human experience behind the activity, the interaction, the product, the ad. So how does that make you feel? So how did that Nike ad back in the 90s impact me? And how does this interaction make you feel? And how do we move people? So that's kind of where I am today.
That's awesome. And I can kind of fully understand this because I'm also a trainer for salespeople and things like that. And, I learned how to keynote speak last year and presenting I've been training people all my life, all my professional life. And it's always how you make people feel after your interaction. It's like you can have, the worst product in the world, let's be fair. And there is some bad products that find their way to a lot of people just because they feel good after whatever the interaction was. Did you buy a pair of Nikes? No, you didn't. But, look what path it brought you on. That for me is the important thing. You got inspired by something. I mean, Nike, of course, they, everybody knows this story. It's definitely coming from me. It'll be totally wrong. But I know they started with obviously runners first. One of my all-time heroes, Steve Prefontaine, he was the first Nike athlete, so to say. People who know me know how much I love Nike. I don't think I've got one single garment from Nike, but that's something for a different podcast. Probably I'll have to talk to Steve Magnus about that because we're on the same wavelength there. But no, they did a fantastic job, with Michael Jordan and things like that. But the important part is always that human interaction, like you say. How does it make me feel when someone spoke to me? And you don't have a long time, right? What's your experience as? I reckon 10 seconds. You got the guy or the girl or whoever, or you don't, whenever you talk to someone. Is that your experience as well?
I think if you're talking about things like advertising and hooks and stuff like that, it's like, we're talking 2 or 3 seconds now if it doesn't hook you. And that sort of speaks to how, the TikTok generation that we've got where, I think I don't even use TikTok, but I know of TikTok and I've certainly watched a bunch of videos. But I think, that's where it started with like 15-second videos or something like that, is because people's attention span is just keep them hooked. Just got to keep them hooked, which is, which I think just really speaks to the way we've just been fed information and stuff these days, which is a whole other thing.
I wonder, I wonder. I don't want to interrupt you there, but just carrying on that. I did a bit of research a few weeks ago because for my latest newsletter, and I know you received it. Thank you for your kind feedback as well, about sleep, right? We sleep an hour less now on average every single night since the 40s, which is phenomenal. That's a lot. That's a high percentage. I wonder what the research would say about our attention span in the same time period as well. Because I'm shocked to hear it's 3 seconds. I still thought it's about 10, and that's nuts. I mean, our attention span nowadays, I mean, I know I'm the same. I'm one of many humans. It's very low. I wonder what 10, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, you've been in the game now for a lot, in this advertising. I don't know anything about it. This is why I have people like you on the podcast who know this stuff.
Yeah.
What's your experience now with this?
I don't know the exact numbers, but all I can suggest is like the reason why you probably perceive that your attention span is longer is because you're a different generation to young people coming through, who really just don't have any. And I know this is a broad generalization, but people's attention spans are getting shorter, and we're just feeding them stuff more and more, which doesn't improve your attention span because, it's like you've got to train. Your brain's a muscle, your attention span's a muscle, you've got to train it. And so you've got to sit with things longer and to go through and, stretch that muscle so that it gets used to having that sort of length of attention span and focus and stuff. But what we're doing is we're constantly feeding people the answers and shorter snippets of things that are more and more stimulating, which, shrinks that muscle right down. So I think that that's what we've been conditioned to do. And my concern is that now with things like chat and AI and stuff I was thinking about this last night actually on a run, which is basically, we had social media and that keeps us glued to our screen because, all of our friends are there and there's a lot of interaction and stuff. But I think this next wave is AI and basically having the answers generated for us where we don't have to do any thinking. Now, whether that technology is, it definitely has its applications and it's definitely useful, but I feel like it's so powerful. It's almost like it needs to be regulated with who has access to it and how we have access to it, because I feel like it's taking away our ability to even think for ourselves or have to think for ourselves. Again, that's a muscle that needs to be exercised. And so, yeah, that's my fear with things like AI, is where we're just now being fed answers, so we don't have to think critically for ourselves. Even though it's very powerful and useful, and I use it as well.
Of course, yeah. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, I use it. I clean things up with it. It's like, oh, I've got this email or I've got this thing that I'm writing, and it just cleans it up a bit. I always still make sure it's still me. I'm the guy who wrote it. It's my input. But you're right. It's like you can see this advertisement overflow now. Just talking about advertisement. 10-year-olds can use AI and they run their own business. Yeah, whatever. You can always believe in everything, in the latest diets and all this kind of stuff. I read something that was quite good. That resonated with me. AI will not replace people, but AI will replace people who don't use AI. That, I thought, wow. I can't remember who wrote it when I saw it. Maybe I'll just let that sit there for a second. AI will not replace people. AI will replace people who don't use AI.
I think the market will demand, I'll just speak for my own experience. I think the market will demand that we use, because of the market, wants everything done faster, more efficiently, yada, 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 will demand that people use these tools that help speed things up, because if you're paying people by the hour, you want them to get through the work a whole lot faster. And yes, AI is really good at processing large amounts of data and distilling that, which is a really time-consuming thing. Yeah, I just think the market will demand that we use tools like AI.
Yeah, because the next guy will, and he'll get the job. This is the thing,
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, that's how I
and
understand it. Yeah.
I think it's just because I'm in the creative sort of industry. There's a lot of fear that um, that tools like AI will replace us as creatives, and I don't think it's going to be quite that bad. I think that AI, like any technology, like the computers, like our devices and stuff, they're just tools at the end of the day, just like a biro was. And it's how we use those tools. So there's still going to be people. There's still going to be people who call themselves creatives who use AI that just crank out fucking rubbish because they don't have that taste, they don't have that sensibility, they don't know what they're looking for. And I feel like if anything, that's going to create a volume of rubbish out there. And that just means that the quality stuff is going to be more visible because there's just so much rubbish out there.
Yeah, but we're always responsible for what we like, right? I think, you know, as a human being, we need to just say, okay, I like this, I don't like that, and we should see through all this. And you're right, that's in every, it's in every area of expertise or so-called expertise. It's like you've got 300 running clubs in Sydney now, and everybody calls themselves a coach and blah, blah, blah. And they use AI to program someone without even knowing the age of the person probably and their background. We pick up runners like that who kind of get a bit frustrated with coaching not being done the way it should be. And the same is in my industry, in my day job as well. You've got engineers who call themselves engineers who probably don't even know how to, brush up or use the broom at the end of a day, because they've never touched a machine that produces anything, So, but I think, and that's good. You know why? I like that. Because it keeps us on our toes and we say, hey, because you are experienced enough. And you can say, hey, have you realized this is what's going on here? And then because people will come to you as, I've just seen this, blah, blah, blah. And you can just say, hey, we'll just relativate this. This is a term that I use. I don't know if it's even an English word, but make it relative again. Just, calm down. Yeah, that's okay. This person is just churning it all out. And that you can see that with everything. I mean, I'm just now talking because I'm away for 2 or 3 days and I'm going to go like off the grid. I just need to do some studying and just do some training. I've got a big race coming up and I just need to have a good bit of, and away with the wife and stuff, which is always good, So going back to what you said, your two identities, I like that, you're as the runner and you're as the creative. Where do they overlap? Where and when? I'm interested. Is it on the run? Is it during the day?
Well, I've always running's always been there. Has been like an expression for me. Ever since I was like a teenager, I've always ran. But like when I was going through my teens, I had a lot of like stress and anxiety problems and stuff like that, and my doctor basically said, you need to burn it off. And why don't you go running? And so why don't you go running? So that's when I started running. So running's always been an expressive thing for me. And it's just through that expression of stress or getting stuff out of my system, I've actually gotten really good at it because I've had a lot of stress and anxiety to deal with. So actually made me really fucking good and enjoy it because I always felt better after it. Now, why am I telling you that? Because creativity for me is an expression as well. So making a podcast or writing in my journal or like I made my son his birthday card last night by hand and stuff. And so that creative tactile experience is another way, is another expression. That being said, you know, in my day job, where I'm at a computer typically, and I'm sometimes being creative, but using a lot of that analytical muscle, I've always managed to find my way outdoors to go for a run during the middle of the day or something. And for the longest time, I used to think, oh, that's just me being lazy because I don't want to be at my desk. But actually, that was an essential part of my day, because when I get back to my desk, I'm refreshed. I've had these brilliant ideas while I'm out. I've cleared stuff. I've expressed stuff that needs to come out. So I feel like they're both kind of about expression for me, and both necessary parts. So one part is to sort of sit down and be creative, and the other part is to sort of get outdoors and get oxygen and experience nature, and yeah.
To bring back energy, to be even more creative. I mean, I couldn't agree more,
Yeah.
really.
And
I have the
sometimes,
same.
and that whole thing, you know, they say take a shower, and sometimes the best ideas you have are when you're in the shower or whatever. I mean, everybody listening to this can probably say that they've had some pretty amazing breakthroughs when they've gone out for a run or a walk in nature, right?
It's simple, you know, if you've got a problem, and I fully agree, right? If you've got a problem that doesn't get solved on a 4 hour long run, I don't think that problem can be solved. That's my benchmark. You know, it's like then you need to sit down with whoever that needs to be sat down, and or whatever it is, the problem, and then that needs to be knotted out. I mean, I speak from experience here. I do this a lot. You know, I rewrite
Yeah.
emails on the run. Sometimes I think about nothing on the run. But it's interesting to hear, you know, when two things, you know, you go for a run, you come back more energized, you can get the second half or whatever, the third quarter of the day or the third of the day nailed. I like it also in the morning. I get a few hours in, full blast, and then over lunch, maybe I hit the gym or whatever. You know, I've got a bit of a bone thing going on since over a year, so I've been fixing that, like lifting heavy, but that's a different story. So yeah, that breaks the day again. Plus I work for an overseas company, so I'm in meetings again in the evening. So there has to be a break. You cannot work 8 hours on the trot. Unless you're in a coal mine and you don't have to think, then probably that's good. But for creative people, which we have to be, back to what we just said about AI and stuff, the most creative people will be the ones that come on top. That cream will rise to the top of the ones who are the most creative, outside the box thinking, challenging the status quo a little bit, which is great. That's what we do, you know. And yeah, I was actually on a trail this morning called Quarry Road, and I know you've still got a few fast efforts there that I have absolutely no chance to get anywhere near. And I always think about that. I'm like, and I know it was a few years back, and you were training for 6 Foot, which is a famous 45-kilometer, yeah, I call it an ultra marathon because it's bloody tough, in Katoomba.
It's
In
45,
New
isn't
South
it?
Wales. 45, yeah, 45K, yeah. So, yeah. So what happened since then? Tell us a little bit more about how you get out now, how you get motivated, what drives you to run other than just being creative?
Well, running really is just, for me at the moment, it's not about being competitive. It's just about moving as often as I can. Just an essential part of being healthy and feeling good in my body and my mind, and knowing that I'm a better person. I feel like I'm a better person after I've been for a run, or at least in the periods of my life, if I haven't ran as much, I don't feel as good. So running, going back to that childhood thing, has just been an essential part of me feeling good and operating as good as I can, and giving myself the best shot. It took me, after like what you were talking about back at Quarry Road and stuff like that, during that time, I was really training hard, and you know that the running was a big part of my identity and stuff, and I made some of my best friends in my life through running. it took me a while to sort of get over that identity of I'm a runner, I have to run, I have to compete, because everybody around me was off fucking traveling the world and doing amazing, incredible things, and still do today. And it took me a long time to actually be okay with myself being like, you know what, you don't need to fucking go out and run 5 hours on a Saturday and then 4 times during the week. You just do you. And that acceptance has been a big thing for me over the past few years, and being okay with that and knowing that running still has a place, but you don't have to smash yourself.
Love it. I really do, because this is something that too many people don't follow, I think. Even professional runners, and I follow, the trail and ultra scene quite intensively. And even when I listen to podcasts or YouTube videos or things like that of these people, they say, hey, at the end of the day, running is what I do. It's not who I am. And if I don't win the race, or I don't come top spot or top 3 or top 10 or whatever it is, so be it. I'll still be Freddie such and such tomorrow morning. I'll still be whoever I am for my family and my friends and whoever else. And that's an important part, even for me. And running is my lifestyle. There is no doubt, right? It's like I have a lot of, it's helped me, with weight loss and a lot of other stuff, that a lot of people go through. I'm not unique in that perspective, but it's just good to hear that. Yeah, sometimes we just have to come to the realization, hey, it's fun to go out when we want because we can, and that's great, right? And just be grateful that we have a body that can endure. Doesn't matter how many runs, There's so many tricks and tools and stuff, So what do you do? I mean, I ask this all my guests because running is this connection. When you don't feel like it, we all have that. What's your trick? Is there a trick up your sleeve where you say, okay, let's see, I'll just run 10 minutes one way. At least I've done a 20-minute run, or don't you need any of this?
No, it's about getting out the door, and I think it's about also being okay with like things like walking or running really slow, or not trying to think too much about Strava or stuff like that. Like last night was a prime example. I went out for I'm only just getting back to running after an ankle injury, and I went out for like what was going to be a 10K loop. And about 2.5, 3Ks into it, I just had no juice in the tank. And so I just walked for like 100 meters. And then I was like, okay, I've just got to start running and just be okay with running super, super slow, like really slow. And then you run really slow. And then before you know it, your pace picks up and you start to feel energized again. And the weight kind of goes. And then in the end, I finished that run really, really strong. But I guess it's those things with, again, acceptance and being okay with like really dialing back the intensity, the volume, and being okay with walking, and being okay with just moving, and being okay with just being outside.
Now look, you talk to the converted here. If you do ultra marathons, walking is a huge part, especially at my pace.
Yeah, that's a trick, eh?
Think of those bloody stairs in the Blue Mountains just recently during UTA 100. I'm like, you're kidding me here. Anyway, but yeah, that's the fun. This is the thing, it's just, you hit the nail on the head there. Running is so much more than the actual running part. It's this whole convincing yourself, let's go out, let's do something anyway, and suddenly it just clicks. Plus, you've got a lot of memory, right? Your body knows what to do. You've got tens and dozens of years of running since you're a child. It'll just click, and we need to believe. The biggest thing is we don't believe. The human being is like, when it comes to self-confidence in many situations, I'm not saying you are one of them, but a lot of times when I talk to people, it's like, it's just belief. You're at the start line, or you're at the door, or you've laced your shoes up, just go out, Before we wrap up, because this has been really good, that doctor, right, that told you to go out and run or exercise, I wonder, I mean, obviously he might be retired now, but I think what a
I'd be
guy, right?
I'd be
What a
surprised if
guy.
he's still above ground, my friend.
What a guy. Like, look, I'm not here to have an opinion about how doctors should operate in their profession.
Yeah,
But that's probably the single best advice many, many doctors could give people nowadays. And I'm not biased, I'm not pro fitness, pro health, pro bloody whatever. But movement in any way, shape, or form must be better than medication. There is no. Right?
yeah, I got a
How
pretty
old? How old were you? You remember?
probably fuck. It would have been early teens, early
Perfect.
teens.
Yeah.
Two things. Always, I always sort of somehow inherently loved running. Like I loved doing the cross country at school before I went and saw the doctor. There was a competitiveness in me, and I just remember, enjoying running around the rugby park, and frickin' running's always been there. But it was that moment with the doctor that actually gave me tool. He gave me a tool to navigate a really frickin' challenging part of my life that could have sent me down a really much worse path. The other part I was going to say was like if it was Aaron and he was like 12 years old, 11 years old in 2025, there's probably a high degree of chance that I'd have been on some sort of medication. And I'm not saying medication's a bad thing, but yeah, I just think movement and just getting outside and moving our bodies are really intelligent, and they know how to repair themselves. And yeah, I think if more of us could move more often, then there'd be a fair few problems left in the world and probably a lot less medication going around.
Probably, yeah. And like I said, we're not evangelists here, but the guests I bring on, like yourself, we've gone through exactly this stuff. We know we dealt with it in whatever way, shape, or form. Different hurdles, different challenges, different rabbit holes, whatever it is. And it's just good to hear from people like, yeah, this is the experience. Like there's just been a blog they released. The gym I go to, it's a powerlifting gym, and it's quite interesting. And I even didn't realize the journey, just with my bone health and stuff. And, they were going to put me on medication, the endocrinologist and stuff like that. And I said no. And I made some changes with my nutritionist to my diet. And then, of course, started lifting heavy, and my bone density has gone up by 2.5% since January, which is fine. This makes me really happy. But of course, it's not about me, but it's just these little things that, you listen to people, you talk to people, and they have their story and their history, and you think, yeah, it's probably. The other thing is, yeah, movement is one. The other thing is we try and get comfortable, People know that I bang on about it. We're always comfortable. I always use the analogy in the car. We have car seat heating. We've got bloody car seat cooling now if you buy one of the later models and things like that. Everything's always comfortable, We always have to be 21.7 degrees. Otherwise, we can't bloody, focus on anything. So there's so many tools. I've written about cold water immersion and all this kind of stuff, and cold plunging, and you and I, we spoke about it last time we had a chat on your behalf. And yeah, so look, I have to say, I can only say thank you very much. If there's anything you would like to add, anything you want to share, just general mindset shift stuff before we finish.
The only two words that come to mind is healthy friction.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's healthy friction, and this ties into the work that I do. Like this shit is making life too easy for us. Like it speaks to going outdoors and having a walk or having a run or moving or lifting weights. You know, friction's good for us. A healthy amount of friction is good for us. Too much friction is really bad for us. But yeah, I think the world needs more healthy friction.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Az.
Beautiful, dude.
I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm 100% convinced our listeners and our audience will love this as much as I did. Thank you so much for
Amazing.
your time.
Thank you, brother.
Peace out, brother.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
See
Bye.
ya. Bye.
That's it for this episode, folks. As we wrap up, I want to honor the traditional custodians of the land I'm recording on and pay my respects to elders past and present. May we continue to listen, learn, and tread lightly wherever we run. If today's episode sparked something in you, hit that share button, leave a review, or drop a comment on Spotify or YouTube. Every little bit helps keep the momentum going. Or even if you've got a question, feedback, or just want to say hi, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep moving, stay curious, and never forget, showing up is the hardest and bravest stride of all.